Well. I don't think this is working again. Well. I have no idea how to do this. I should stop trying, shouldn't I? Something about scheduling events that doesn't work for me, right? Oh, oh man, this is crazy. Hi, Becky. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what I've done wrong with my event. It says I should have had an event at 6. It was supposed to automatically begin, but it didn't. So, how could that be? How do I not understand this? Oh, Lord, help me. Please, Lord, help me. Help me. All right. I don't know if anybody's going to get this. Lisa, hi. Kathy, Chris, Michael, Becky. I should be monitoring, um, you know, but I don't know. I don't know. So here, let me explain why I'm verklempt. I am podcasting an event, but nobody is seeing the event. But I learned the last time as a backup plan, have another live video going on simultaneous. But I don't think I did it right. So I got you guys. So I'll just have to repost this video, which it will be a video in 45 minutes, and repost this in the meditation group where I set up as a live event. Then I tried to tell the live event people, hey, here's where the actual video is in case you missed it. And it says something went wrong. Sol sadi tadi. So what can I do? What can I do to make you feel the way I do? Anyways, I give up. I'm too distracted. Let me just get on with the subject. It says now that I'm live in the Buddhist Center. If I am, you should be able to comment, but I don't see that you can. I just see blank, blankety blank. Blank, blankety blank. Not the fertile ground upon which to teach about self. Hi, Aaron. Welcome. So let me get on with this. Thank you, Ray Dean. So this is a continuation of Saturday night's discussion, teaching, whatever you would call it. And thus, I know what it is in general I want to talk about, which, as you all know, anybody who's familiar with my podcast knows that typically I don't have a topic picked out. Okay, I just went and I am live on the other one, so I'm gonna not worry about that. All right, back to you guys. So notes to myself. Here's what I didn't feel that I'd done a complete job the other night when I talked about what is self. Who am I? Who are you? Who are we? And I got into a discussion with you that I want to continue. But before I do that, I want to open this podcast properly. Now that I'm breathing and I'm not completely verklempt, I want to inject kind of like an introduction, first off, just to the podcast. So bear with me. I'm off to a rocky freaking start. I know. It's 6:05 p.m. It is June 7th, 2021. Typically, when I podcast, I do so under Law and Disorder, Ken Goldberg's Law and Disorder. every evening, Monday through Saturday. I podcast simultaneously on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook page. Okay. And tonight and Saturday, I had a theme that is more than I typically do. Those of you who are regulars know that most of the time I just show up and I talk about whatever kind of pops in my head. But after our talk on Saturday about, what is self, and we did a little short meditation, and then I rambled for a while about kind of how would you say, a variety of teachings that have been given to me by the monks, the Thai monks primarily, on this thing we call self, or sometimes the topic gets into no self. And it was a topic that troubled me from day one. If you say to me that there is no self, I immediately back up, get ready to draw and go like, who are you think you're talking to, and what in the heck do you think you're talking about? You know what I'm saying? I just don't get it. But starting back on Saturday, as I said, when I began to meditate and meditate regularly, I observed a phenomenon. I observed in my quiet moments that I could not control what evolved during meditation. What I could control was my efforts to be present in the now. Because typically, when I'm not focused mindfully and skillfully on this present moment, typically it is common for me to travel in through time and space, to go back to things that happened that are not happening in the moment, or to project into activities that have yet to happen, which I am merely projecting them. And then there was another category, and that was simply to almost be in a dreamlike state. And I mean that in the following. I would drift off into thought, not the future, not the past, just into some thoughts would come up. And the way I began to recognize those thoughts was typically a physical reaction. I noticed that I had this thing where I got agitated about a conversation I was having. And so when I focused on what is this that's causing me agitation, I discovered, like a dream, that I was having difficulties in an exchange with somebody or somebodies, but they were not identifiable. Much as in a dream, it was not clear to me who I was talking to and even what I was talking about, only that I was physically reacting to something I thought was taking place. But as I retreated back to the moment, I knew that this encounter was completely fabricated by the mind. I wasn't talking to this unknown person. I wasn't having a conversation about anything at all. And my agitation was in something that I thought was happening. It's like it's reality because my body reacted as if it was reality. But in truth, same thing is happens oftentimes in dreams. In dreams, we often wake up agitated about something that was going on in the dream. Now, you can talk to me all you want about the meaning of dreams. I'm not interested in the least in the science or theories about the meaning of dreams, because that's irrelevant to what I want to discuss. What I want to discuss is, how is it that something so unreal can be perceived as real? But we all know it can. We know that if we close our eyes, whether it's sleep or awake, we can have moments that seem real, but upon opening the eyes, we know it was just fabrication. So When I start talking to people about you don't own your thoughts, you don't own your feelings, you're not really the manager you think you are, that can be misleading. Because the truth is, you can call up your mental faculties to achieve certain things in the present moment. You could have a math problem presented to you, and obviously there is enough control inside this entity, which I will call mine Ken. Inside this entity, I have the ability in a store to purchase and count my change and be aware that this is in my interest. Who's me? Ken. Okay? So there's no denying the existence of this thing called Ken or Mark or Rachel or Ray Dean. There is something which we have labeled such and which we self-label. But how much of it is us? How much does this label say about this thing, which is really nothing but a kind of a microorganism in the universe, right? I mean, we are very fragile entities. I've said before, there is toxic air, which if you were exposed to enough of it for a period of time would kill you. There are drinks, or liquids, I should say. They're not drinks. There are liquids that can kill you. You are very vulnerable. If you started drinking everything that pigeons and cats could drink, muddy water and whatnot, you'd probably get sick. As you may note, that most of the animal kingdom doesn't get sick just because it drank dirty water or ate dirty food, ate raw animals, that were sitting outside the road. You've seen birds do that. So, but a lot of these things are threatening to this body, which must operate somewhere around 98.6, give or take a degree or two. If this body heats up over 104 degrees, it is threatened with extinction, with death. If it drops below 96, I think, I don't know precisely, that too becomes a threat to the existence of this organism. It's really a fairly vulnerable organism in a very hostile environment. So, what is this thing? I can recall that sometime around 8th grade, I told you I was told by a teacher that I would have to lip sync as part of my participation in a synagogue event. I remember this, and this event, in fact, did take place. But that kid is not me today. I wasn't locked into that entity called Ken or Kenny at the time. I've changed. In fact, I don't have, as far as I understand it, again, science ain't my major, right? I don't have any of the cells in my body that I had in 8th grade. Not only do I not have those same cells, any of them, every 7 years, I've almost completely changed all the cells in my body. In other words, cells have died and other cells have replaced it. So for a lot of reasons, I'm not that 8th grade kid. For a lot of reasons, I'm not that 21-year-old celebrating I can go out and have liquor now. I actually quit drinking when I was 21 because I didn't. I had been drinking already for years. I thought it's legal. Why do I want to bother with it anymore? So so there's this balancing act of recognizing who I am. I have desires. I have the desire to be the best father I can be. Whatever this thing is that you call Ken, I call Ken, can wake up every day of the year and have a desire to be the best father I can be, to be the best friend, to be the best son, to be the best brother. But in executing that, there are all kinds of uncontrolled elements. I don't control most of what unfolds. I certainly don't control how you perceive me. So who's right? If you think I'm a jerk, I don't think so. But if enough of you think I'm a jerk, wouldn't that pretty much indicate that I am a jerk? In other words, who's defining this entity? I can define it from the external world, but from the internal world, there's a whole nother set of machinations at work. And the more I meditate, the more I give strength to this inner life, this spiritual life, to participate in my outer life. If I recognize my limitations as a human, if I recognize my limitations to control thought, to control emotions, to control aging, when I recognize the limitations, then I can more fully participate physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally in the present moment. But how successful can I be in the present moment being Ken if I have no awareness of this inner life? This inner life that so many of you have either glimpsed or dwelled in because you're further advanced than me. You've been meditating for many years and you have a rich inner life. I don't. Or like Ray Dean, who's got a real artistic bent. Lisa, who's got an artistic bent. Rachel, you people have also access frequently to an inner life that we call creative. I don't have that. I can't paint. I can play congas. All right. That's part of the inner life. But the spiritual inner life, the richness of inner life, is cloaked from us from an early age. It is cloaked from us by the mandates we got from society telling us to do certain things, and by defining us, starting with they gave us a name, then they gave us a sex, then they told us how that people of that sex or that age should act. We were given some allowance from certain behaviors because we were young, but then one day we were told we were too old to act that way. Okay? And some people are told they shouldn't act that way, it's too feminine. Or a girl being told it's too masculine. I played with dolls when I was young, and I got to tell you, I'm only remembering that right now. I had no intention of remembering that or injecting that. I'm just remembering amongst the admonitions when I was young, 4 or 5 years old, I enjoyed dolls. And if I was offered a doll, I accepted it. If I was asked what I want, I might want a doll. Now, I was equally entertained by owning plastic toy guns. I loved my toy guns. But now, and I remember, and I'm not real clear because that was over 60 years ago, that there was a certain amount of concern about me playing with dolls. Just, it wasn't anything. Nobody sat me down and said, boys don't play with dolls. It wasn't like that. It was just kind of like, what is this thing that, this young boy should care about dolls? So I have been defined mostly by external events, which society has dictated, and different societies dictate. Most of the monks I know, for instance, became monks when they were 14. They didn't wake up when they were 14 and go, I want to be a monk. It was usually, importantly, family that really wanted them to be monks for a variety of reasons. There's tremendous merit perceived in a Buddhist nation of being a monk. There is access to education that may be denied a non-monk for lack of money. There is always a monastery for them to live in. There are always people willing to support them. And so at the age of 14 or so, many young Asian lads, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, will enter as novices, and they will live that way until they're 21, at which time they will receive the nomenclature of full monk, bhikkhu. And the word is bhikkhu for a male monk, bhikkhuni for a female monk. But you can't be a full monk until you're 21. And then some stay, finish their education, and reside as monks for years. Others get their degree and quit because they did the deal. They achieved what they set out to achieve. They got the education. Their families are happy with the 10 years they spent as a monk. So there's so much we get from the external world about who we are. And it's persistent, it's consistent, it's relentless. It never stops. And a more mature level, I am a lawyer. I have licensed in 3 states. The perception of me in the legal community was, past tense, that I was pretty tenacious and that people favored me as a lawyer because they knew that I was fairly zealous in my advocacy. One of the reasons I was the lawyer I was and am is that I stood in front of a judge, and I never forgot the day the judge said to me, "You are facing a penalty of 6 to 15 years in the Illinois State Penitentiary. Do you understand that?" I was 17. I understood it perfectly. I didn't like it. And I watched my lawyer fumble. And he never instilled in me confidence. And I was not allowed to speak on my own behalf. So as I got old, and I went to court on, I got in trouble for a gun. I got in trouble for loitering and disorderly conduct and resisting arrest and all these manufactured cases. The gun case was not manufactured. The disorderly conduct, the loitering, many of those cases were just simply fabricated. But I knew what it was to be in an environment that we call a courtroom and to be stripped of any ability to communicate meaningfully except through somebody who's my mouthpiece. So when I became that mouthpiece, I was, in some ways you might say, I was exuberant. And I knew always instinctively what my client sought. And I made sure to say what my client wanted to hear if they could talk. Okay. So anyways, I developed a reputation. When I tried to change the paradigm of me as a lawyer from kind of pit bull to simply, I'm just smart and I'll get the job done. The first time I encountered that, the person was agitated even after I won because, as they said to a mutual friend, but he wasn't the asshole I wanted him to be. And I had told them in advance, I think what you're looking for is, I suspect, the old Ken. The new Ken, I said, is a Buddhist, does not engage in combat like I used to. And I have no inclination to be the pit bull. But if only after wearing me down did I agree to take the case for one hearing. And I disappointed them. I won. They were disappointed. They wanted me to make somebody bleed. Their what would have been soon to be ex-husband. Becky says, my mom did not tame us too much when we were kids. We had an album and a book called Free to Be You and Me. And one of the songs was William Wants a Doll. The lesson was about boys learning to care and nurture just like girls to be able to be good parents. Well, I hope, Becky, you don't think that most of us went through that experience. I suspect, knowing you, Becky, that you're fully aware that you are an anomaly. You are not the norm, okay? And, I assume that this we kids meant that the boys and the girls in your family all were given this lesson. And kudos to your parents for attempting to raise you that way. Even if your parents did all that stuff that was good, Becky, at some point you still went to school. And I'm pretty dang sure, unless you went to some kind of existential location, that your school wasn't teaching you how to be a good boy girl subsequent parent. You probably have never had a job that said, Becky, you know, you're very yin yang, and that's the way we like you, and we always want you to be in touch with your soft and your hard because we think that's a real benefit to the company. I'm just guessing. You may have lived a very charmed life. I didn't live a charmed life. I owned a gun range. There's so much macho. There's so much testosterone. Even the women have testosterone in a gun range, right? They're coming in, and I was the CEO. I had in many times to be as macho as I could be, and sometimes I upped the ante. For me to be a success in that environment, people had to believe in my skill. So I had to demonstrate my skill up to and including at times taking a layperson, somebody who was not a client, and correcting their behavior at the threat of hurting them. Okay? So, you know, like the contractors that came in to the gun range when it was being built. We were moving to a new building, you know, and I told the guy, you know, I didn't want him in my building. I needed him to leave, and please leave. And it was three of them, and they decided that he wasn't going to leave. He was going to confiscate, grab these materials that I told them he couldn't do. Anyways, I had to I had to threaten him. I had to go to the next level. I didn't engage with him initially at that level. I didn't intend to escalate. I went in very accommodating and explained the difficulties with him claiming this material that I had no claim to, but that he had no claim to either. And I explained to him how to go about legally securing this property that I held under key. It was a very simple explanation. Go do that, come back. And they just decide no. So the point of it is sometimes circumstances have inspired me to go to a deeper, darker place. Or maybe it's not deeper and darker. Maybe it's just sensical. Maybe it was just common sense to tell him, if you don't stop now, because I've already told you what to do, now I'm going to hurt you, right? He heard that. So who am I? Again, a continuation. There is clearly something I can refer to as myself. Despite what the convoluted teachings at times of the Buddhist practice or any other practice, clearly there is something I recognize as self. There is something that can solve problems, and that same thing can create problems. And I can harness my thoughts, but not much my emotions. I can harness my thoughts for periods of time in order to achieve a transaction. I ran the gun range every day. I showed up at a certain time. I left at a certain time. I was a good lawyer. I opened up my calendar every morning. I had this calendar, and I would look, what are my cases today? Pull the files if I hadn't already pulled them. Go to these various courthouses and these various courtrooms. This thing called Ken, could navigate that. But Ken had absolutely no control outside himself and had almost zero control of the inner self that we often think of. Our inner life is where most of the spiritual part lies, a lot of the emotional part lies. And if I could, right hand to God, if there's a God, I would absolutely choose to stay present. I would absolutely choose to stay present. And when I had to step out, if it were my choice, I'd like to control the environment. One of the difficulties for me as an organism on this planet is how little control I have. I have harbored the illusion of control, and that illusion comes from this sense of self that is just completely illusion. An illusion, it's illusory. I don't have the ability. If I sit and talk with you people, it will have been 45 minutes when I'm done. I will have communicated as best I can certain concepts. As to whether you will look at those concepts the same way I do, anybody's guess. Because this thing, this one's called Ken, this one called Rachel, called Ray Dean. This thing has its own filter, which arose out of or developed out of your personal experiences and thoughts. So you may have perceived somebody that I know and you thought they were a jerk. Ray Dean, I think we can think of one right off, right? And that person may be embraced by many others. What a nice person. What a nice man. What a nice woman. You know, blah, 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 blah. But I know this person as well as anybody, and I would say, well, he or she or they can be jerks. Somebody would say, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. When I hear I don't know what you're talking about, I probably should recognize, one, I opened up Pandora's box I shouldn't do, especially if I'm talking about a person, right? Because what I'm talking about is a perception and only a perception. I can sit and say, well, in 1978, that person borrowed money from me and they never paid me back. That may convince you that person's a jerk. It may not. I don't control anybody else's perception. I'm better than most, but that comes out of being a trial lawyer and a social worker. My life literally depended upon my ability to communicate. My life as a social worker on the street, literally on a variety of occasions, I only didn't get shot or beaten badly because in a short period of time, I was able to communicate thoughts in such a way as to diminish the hostility that was being directed at me, right? So I can harness external stimuli, process, and do the next best thing. But in those cases that I'm thinking of right now as a social worker, where I was able to de-escalate a situation, I can assure you almost every time it didn't have any longevity. I hadn't communicated so well, or I hadn't communicated so convincingly that this person was locked onto that attitude with me going forward. I may have almost a similar encounter with that same person a weeks, months later, right? You're like, why are we doing this again? Well, because. And that's all you need to know. Because there are two separate entities exchanging feelings, thoughts, right? And everybody's got their own processor. So I recognize there is a me that you know, that you can say likes to bike and does a podcast and has 3 black cats and lives in Dallas. Blah, 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 blah. None of those will be me. They will be descriptions of me. They will describe some part of me, but they will have something, but not much relationship to who I am, because this inner life, it's called an inner life. Mostly because it's inner. For it to become outer life really requires a great deal of practice. It requires meditation, frequent meditation on my part. It requires putting into practice. It requires that when I read something, let me use Buddhist teachings as an example. So when I read the Eightfold Noble Path and it talks about right speech, that's good. I can read it. But if I'm not practicing it, if the inner self isn't demanding almost that I not practice impatience, greed, anger, all what we call defilements, unless I am making a determined effort from within, that what ultimately comes out is actually skillful and was done mindfully, the chances are I'm just a bull in a china shop constantly. And I still see it every freaking day. Every day I go to 12-step program, right? And I'm mingling with people during and after. And it is not unusual somewhere out in the parking lot afterwards for somebody to say, he doesn't mean that, and point at me. Because I just said something that was indelicate. Because I said something that could well have been interpreted as insensitive or offensive. But I don't mean to be. Sometimes I mean it in jest. So yes, the words are potentially insensitive, but the meaning is, oh, you know better than that. And then the other person goes, wow, why would you say that to me? And I'm like, oh my God, they think I meant that. And so now I have to go, I'm sorry. It was meant in fun. I apologize, right? I've done more than my share of, I'm really sorry. My mouth, I don't know what my mouth is connected to. I don't know which synapses are operational at any one moment when I open my mouth, right? And sometimes when I'm done talking about something, I'm like, I don't know where I came up with that thought, or, oh, I'm glad I got that said. I mean, there's all kinds of reactions I have to things that come out of my mouth. I talked about pause when agitated or doubtful. I think I talked about that. That's a saying. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they say, we learn to pause when agitated or doubtful. There's more to it, but I want to focus on that. And when people would say, Ken, why didn't you pause before you did that? My first couple of years around people in 12-step programs sounded like this. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't pause when agitated or doubtful. Let me think. I thought about pause and I said, no, I'm not going to pause. I'm like, I don't even think to pause. It wasn't on the list of things to do. I'm like fast forward or fast reverse. I don't have a neutral. I'm so sorry. Well, I do have a neutral. But in order to get there, I had to practice. I had to practice parking and driving or something, right? I had to practice thinking more when I spoke than just reacting. I had to learn to be an actor, not a reactor. And so I am befuddled. I guess at the end of the day, let me be clear. I'm befuddled by who I am. And Buddhism gives me a path which has led to all these mini discoveries about myself. But I'm so far away from kind of the goal line of being able to manage myself through my practice. But hi, Jessica. Sorry, I'm just reading that. I haven't been on that page. So yeah, Buddhism has given me a guide. I talk to people a lot about the analogy that 12 steps is a path. Buddhism is a path. I try to stay on these paths, like when I was learning to hike with my friend Johnny. Johnny sometimes wanted to bushwhack. Bushwhack means you leave the trail and you make your own. And I know I always said to Johnny, yeah, that's a bad idea, man. There's a good reason to stay on the trail. It's easier to see a rattlesnake if you stay on the trail. It's easier not to get lost because the trail has been, stepped on. It's leading somewhere. If I get lost, the odds are a ranger eventually will come by, right? There is a good reason to stay on these well-worn paths because somebody's already tried this out. My first Buddhist teacher used to say, Buddhism's been tried for 2,600 years. It works. It's been test-driven. Don't come to me, he said, with suggestions on how to tweak it. This isn't some new age thing. This is Buddhism, he said. That's what I'm teaching. At the time, it was my very first teacher. I didn't get some of it, but over the years, I get it, man. Stay on the path. Do what others have already learned to do and have passed down. The Buddha did not know what to do when he became enlightened 2,600 years ago. The story of the Buddha is filled with the moment. Filled with the moment. I don't know that that's the accurate characterization. There was clearly this attempt on his part after he recognized that he had become enlightened and he understood how he had become enlightened. He had this turmoil of, well, what do I do with this? Do I just live out my life as a wise person? What am I supposed to do? Do I teach? What do I do? And ultimately he decided to teach, and he went on to teach for 40 plus years. A good decision. So his thing was, you can learn this. I discovered this path. And then since then, it's been practiced by millions of people. Why? They don't need me to invent the new Buddhism. They don't need for me to invent the new AA, the new NA, the new Cocaine Anonymous. They don't need anything from me to make the 12 steps work better. Okay? I am on this path. I don't think I'll see enlightenment, but I hope that I will be able to manifest this inner life, which really doesn't even have a name. It's not Ken necessarily. Okay? It's more of a harmonious aspect of my nature that's connected to all nature. It's more the me that when he got up a mountain, looked around and just went, wow, right? No judgment, just wow. It's the part of me that has seen very, very aberrant behavior, like for instance on a client, and unhesitatingly loved that person despite what the accusation was. That was that inner me that connected to people, places, and things at a more instinctive level, not through the thought level. Because my thinking is stinking sometimes. All right, it's the end. I appreciate those of you that stuck around, kind of listened, and maybe you got something out of it, maybe you didn't. I don't know. I'm still a digital idiot. So let's do some metta. Metta is a Buddhist practice, but all persons, you don't have to be Buddhist to do anything I spoke about, which is meditate or practice being patient, not greedy, being appreciative, not being angry. We can all learn to practice wholesome behaviors and leave the unwholesome behind. And that strength, that wisdom of how we exercise that, that's coming from our inner life, which we tap into during meditation. All right, so I end with compassion and goodwill. by bringing my hands before my heart, bowing my head and closing my eyes, taking a deep breath and thinking with you. May I be happy, healthy, and free from harm, free from anger, animosity, anxiety, and fear. May this practice lead me to a life of greater peace and comfort. May my mother and father, all my living relatives, and all my friends be happy, be healthy, and free from all harm. May they too find the path that leads them to greater peace and comfort. May those persons I find difficult, whatever resentments or difficulties I may carry, let me set them aside in this moment, no matter how briefly, long enough to send goodwill, that these persons may be happy, healthy, free from all harm, enjoying their lives in the present moment. And to all living beings throughout the entire universe, let us send out our collective goodwill and kindness, that all living beings be happy, healthy, free from harm. May all living beings live their lives in safety, comfort, and peace. Satu, Satu, Satu. So, thank you. If you stuck around this long, kudos. I am going to say goodbye to Jessica. I hope to see you very soon. Sounds like you're recovering well from all those surgeries. I've been sending blessings your way all the time. And I hope to see you live and in person soon, and your son. And then on this other Facebook group, you are welcome, Chris, Mark, Kathy, Ann, Rachel, Ray, Dean. I don't know if Lisa was here or Joan was here. Michael, Aaron. I said Kathy. I don't know. Anyways, I'm burnt out, man. I had to think just now. You know what thinking does to me. Have a safe trip, Chris. Everybody, let Chris know he should have a safe trip. All right. Peace out.